with me today, I have Valerie Ronald, who is a contributor to a new anthology called Creativity and Chaos, Artistic Endeavors for Trying Times. And this is published by InScribe Press. It's their latest anthology, and we're excited about the new anthology and all the wonderful pieces in it. So nice to see you, Valerie.
Oh, nice to see you, Tracy. I'm excited about this anthology too.
Well, as you should be, because as I was, preparing for today's interview, I see that you actually have three pieces. I think that's right, isn't it? Three pieces?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Yeah. So
Well,
I haven't read them all. I'll just let you
well,
know. But I see there's, in the fiction, creative nonfiction, and reflection. But yeah, all prose for sure. And why don't you tell us a little bit about, I don't know, which one do you want to start with?
well, I have them sitting here as I've been looking at them. I can start with the one of the ones that's in the category of personal essay.
Sure.
It's called Green Cottage Mercies, and it's an account from my own life of a time that was very difficult for me, and I was really struggling. And a friend of mine lent me her little cottage while she went away on a trip. It was a sweet little green cottage next to a marsh. And it was just a haven for me. I was able to collect my thoughts and rest. And what had happened is that I was going through a very difficult divorce. And I also had been diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma cancer in the same time. So it was quite a difficult time. So while I was there, I dusted off my watercolor paints and painted some of the flowers that my friend grew in her garden. And it was so therapeutic. And it's something I hadn't done for a long time. And it really ministered to my heart. And then I started to journal. So those two creative endeavors were really part of my healing journey during that time.
Wow. And I'm hearing this so often, and I know it's been true in my own life too, is that sometimes these like creativity, and so you mentioned watercolors and then journaling, those are so important for our our mental health, I guess, for bringing therapy or for helping us to make sense of the world and helping us, through trials and stuff like that. So just here's just another great example of how that really is true.
Yes, yeah. Well,
Wow.
this particular piece was written as a response to the topic of
Mhm.
this new anthology, and it got me thinking: when have I experienced healing and growth through creativity in difficult times? And that particular incident came to mind.
Yes, yeah. And I also like the fact that, you found a little retreat, so to speak. Like sometimes location is really important too, whether it be, just being out in nature or your own little writing corner or whatever it might be. But sometimes those kind of retreat places also help us to sort of unload and free our minds so that we can be more creative and what a lovely gift for you.
It was. I lived in the city on a very busy road, which was always noisy. So to be somewhere quiet with nature and where I didn't have my usual responsibilities pressing on, it was exactly what the Lord gave me as a gift at that time.
Yes, that's beautiful. So that one's called Green Cottage Mercies.
Yes.
What about you do have another reflection called Carved by the Creator? Um,
Yes.
yeah, what's that one about, or what was the inspiration for that piece?
Well, I grew up on the west coast of in BC, on Vancouver Island. So the ocean and the natural beauty there has always ministered to me. And I was given at one time a set of beautifully carved or spoons, wooden spoons made out of arbutus wood. So I thought about what the carver told me about that process, that they look for a dead tree or one that has been split by lightning to get to the heartwood of the arbutus where the most beautiful grains and textures are found. And I thought, that's what God has been doing in me. I've had to be split open in order for him to find those treasures. And he's been able to carve me um, like the arbutus spoons. And the carving is not fun and it's not easy and it takes time, But as I've come through that, I've seen the work that he's done in me. So I used it as a analogy
Yes.
between what God has done in my life and the carving that's required to make these beautiful spoons.
That is a really beautiful metaphor. Oh, wow. I love that. Um, yeah, and that a carving process, like you say, could be painful. Uh,
Yes,
but at the end of the day, he makes beauty from ashes. He can do all those things, right? Find something.
exactly.
And I find that's often true. Often our biggest times of growth, spiritually as Christians, even just as human beings, come through difficulties. It's usually not through the easy, fun times that we grow. It's the other way around.
Yes, so sometimes we regret or wish that that wasn't the way it is, but that's true. And in many ways, I wouldn't want to give up those difficult times because of what I've learned spiritually and about the Lord and about lots of different things that have helped me to grow.
Yes, yes. And I've read, like you do, you contribute to one of our InScribe blogs, InScribe Writers Online regularly. And I always look forward to your monthly contribution because you do really tend to speak to the heart of the matter very eloquently. So I appreciate your reflections a
Thank
lot.
you.
Yeah. So the last piece that you have in the anthology is called Stone Ghost. And yeah, that's a fiction piece, apparently. So tell us about that.
Yes, yeah. I wrote it a while ago and then I brushed it off and cleaned it up a bit. And it's been inspired by sort of a little fantasy of mine that I would love to live in a church, not an active church, but a church building. And, even here in Manitoba, quite a few little country churches have closed down and people have turned them into homes. And that's always kind of fascinated me. So that was the inspiration for this piece. And so I was thinking, well, why would someone buy an old church? What would they use it for? And I thought, well, they're really big inside, so maybe a sculptor. So the whole process, the storyline, I'm not quite sure how it all came together, but it's the story of a man who lost his wife and has really struggled for many years, and he's a sculptor. And as he's renovating this old church, and he has a sort of a motherly carpenter's helper, a lady who pokes at him a little bit about his story. So he tells her his story, and then it motivates him to uncreate some of these sculptures, and he has an encounter with the Lord through it. And I don't want to give it away. I don't want to
No,
give
no spoilers. Yeah, no
no
spoilers.
spoilers. Yeah. So
But that sounds intriguing. Yeah.
yeah,
Like it's maybe more than a short story. Have you ever thought about expanding that into a longer piece, a novella even, or a novel?
I was told that that would be a good idea at some point. Because I was on a shorter word count when I submitted it. So
Yes.
so I
Yeah.
had to condense the story. But yeah, it's something to think about that I might do someday.
Wow. So speaking of, like what are some other, as far as your writer journey, I mentioned that you do blog and you've got several pieces published in other anthologies and magazines and things. Tell us a little bit about your writer journey or maybe what you're doing currently in terms of your
Yeah,
writing.
yeah. I've been writing since I was a child. It's just something I need to do. I cannot not write. And I graduated from a journalism program in Vancouver as a young person, kind of put my writing on hold while I was raising my family, and then gradually got back to it as I had more time. Um, I really started to write seriously when I was asked to write devotionals on the back of for the back of our church bulletin once a month. So I have many, many of those. I've been doing those for about 20 years now, and I'm actually compiling them into a devotional book.
I really um, I enjoy your writing style. It's very deep, it's very descriptive, and it's if I can put it this way, it feels meaningful. Not that everyone's writing doesn't have meaning in its own way, but I always find when I know when I read something by Valerie Ronald, I'm going to be impacted somewhere here. So
Thank you.
appreciate that. Thanks. Thank you for that. Well, is there anything else that you wanted to tell us today before we wrap it up?
Well, I'm really going to be looking forward to this anthology. I think the topic is quite fascinating. And it took me a while to process that in my head as to what does that mean and how would that look in writing pieces. But it's going to be a very interesting read when it's published. And
I believe you're right. I think so too. I think it's a timely topic because a lot of the some people's writing came out of, COVID, but not necessarily. I mean, I think that creativity often stems out of chaos or vice versa. Sometimes the creative process can be chaotic.
that is true.
But there's just a lot of connection there. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing the whole thing when it's finally done. And the book launch is in September at InScribe's annual fall conference. So we're looking forward to that for sure.
Yes, me too.
Yeah. Well, it's been lovely to chat with you today, Valerie, and I hope that I'll see you again soon. And I just want to say God bless and pray that God blesses your writing and all those things.
Well, thank you for having me and enjoy the rest of your summer.
Thanks.